As Israel advances further into Gaza, it strikes an ambulance and a school overnight, killing 20 people, according to Gaza's health ministry. After 4 weeks of war, the UN says more than half of the population in Gaza has now been uprooted from their homes. The EU's top official arrives in Kiev for talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky as Ukraine seeks membership of the EU.
Italy's Tuscany region is assessing the damage caused by Storm Ciarán that forced hundreds to evacuate and killed at least 7 people.
Israeli troops are continuing with their advance through the Gaza Strip and have already encircled Gaza City. There were more Israeli airstrikes overnight on Friday, with Israel rejecting the UN's call for a ceasefire and President Biden's call for humanitarian pauses in the fighting. Israeli warplanes bombed this school in northern Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry said 20 people were killed. Israel also struck an ambulance that it said Hamas members were using. After viewing the video of the scene, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said he was horrified at the strike and described the humanitarian situation in Gaza as horrific. Israel is also being targeted. Air raid sirens went off in the central city of Jaffa and early on Saturday morning in the southern city of Eilat. So far in this war, more than 1,400 Israelis and more than 9,000 Palestinians have been killed. The UN says more than half of the population in Gaza has now been uprooted by the fighting. 1.5 million Gazans out of an estimated 2.7 million have now been displaced. However, at the Rafah border crossing with Egypt, only around 800 people, almost all of them dual nationals and a few dozen wounded, have been allowed to flee.
What we've seen unfold over the last 26 days in Israel and in the occupied territories is nothing short of what I think I would call a blight on our collective conscience, all of us. We're all somehow involved in this.
There's not enough food to go around in Gaza, and there's not enough drinking water, as Israel has cut off most of the water supply. The UN says Gazans are receiving less than a tenth of the water they used to receive before the war. Many Gazans say they now have to drink dirty water, which is making them ill. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen arrived in Kiev on Saturday morning for talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky. It comes just before the release of an EU report that will assess how Ukraine has gone towards meeting the criteria for EU membership. And it'll play a critical role in determining whether the bloc agrees to start formal accession talks with Kiev next month. Von der Leyen also paid tribute to Ukraine's railway workers.
You have helped your compatriots to seek shelter in the European Union and come back home again. You got the grain and the vital products out of Ukraine and into the world. You keep the lifeline running. And it is outstanding. I can witness it because it is the 6th time that I've come to Kyiv by train. And I must say, this train is a legend.
At a special ceremony afterwards, employees of the state railway company were given awards for evacuating people and organising travel for dignitaries.
Almost half of Europe is still reeling from Storm Ciarán, which killed at least 12 people, caused millions of euros worth of damage, and left 500,000 homes in France without electricity. The storm caused hurricane-force winds to fan a forest fire in Spain and broke records in the United Kingdom. 6 countries were on alert for 2 days, and hundreds of flights were grounded. Tuscany in central Italy was the most affected by the storm, which killed at least 7 people. 1 person is still missing after heavy rains hit the region. Around 300 had to be evacuated, and in some areas, a month's worth of rain fell in just 3 hours. Emergency services are still helping people in the region, as thousands are still without electricity and moving around is difficult, with 13 national roads flooded.